Hi everyone. Today I made a post on my Facebook page about how all of my kids had to turn in their tablets because none of them were going to be on privilege this week, and I had some questions about how I do privileges and our demerit system, so I thought I'd make a quick video and show you guys how I do that. I myself went to an ACE school, and so I was already used to using a privilege system at school, and so I decided to incorporate that at home with my kids since we use ACE curriculum, and I have adapted it to work in a home setting. And so I'll just show you some of the ideas that I have used to make it work here. First off, I'll start with this little cartoon here in this pace. Miriam here wants to be on A privilege, so she's gonna finish her pace and take a test, and she's memorized her scripture, and then she earns A privilege. And in the ACE, the privilege levels are A, C, and E. A being the lowest, C is the middle, and E is the highest privilege. And we call it X privilege if they don't have any privilege at all. So I have this little chart here that I hang on the refrigerator that's laminated, and it tells on this side what the privileges are that what they need to do to get on privilege, and then at the bottom what privileges they get. So I'll just go over it with you. But this is how many stars they need to have in a week. It's different based on what week it is. So on the opposite side, I have for A, C, and E has 3 different ones because some of the kids only have 5 subjects, some have 6 subjects, and some, if they have literature, I call that 6.5 subjects. So I made it different depending on how many subjects they had. And then down the side here, this part shows what week of school we're in, and we have this little green sticker that we move down each week that highlights which week we're on. So we're on week 26. So if they want to be an A privilege, they need to have finished 26 paces by now, so that would be 1 pace per week. If they want to be on C privilege, that's this column here, they need to have 39 done, and to be on E, depending on how many subjects they have, they either need to have 44, 52, or 56, and that would equal out to being 2 paces a week per subject, or slightly more than that if there's also literature thrown in there. So I just kind of divided it up, and you can see how it just goes down about 2 paces per week for being on E. And if they do 2 paces per week, that means that they will have finished an entire year's worth of schoolwork, because there are 12 paces per subject, and so that comes out to, if they have 5 subjects, that's 60 paces a year. So that means at the end of the year they would have finished all 60 paces. So that's actually keeping them on schedule to complete the year's 1 year's worth of schoolwork. So they have to check the chart to see if they have enough stars. Then we have demerits, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But if they want to be on E, they can only have 0 to 5 demerits. C is 6 to 15 demerits. A is 16 to 25, and 26 or more means no privilege. And they have to have every single thing on this column to be on whichever privilege they're going for. If they're missing anything, then they can't have that privilege. In the actual paces, or in the school, when I was going to school, the amount of demerits you could get in a week was 3 to be on E, but I do this all day long. This isn't something that we only use exclusively during school time, so I gave much higher limits on the amount of demerits that the kids could get, because it's beyond just normal schoolwork things. So I'll talk about how they get their demerits in a minute, but anyways, that's how I kind of came up with an amount that I felt like was reasonable for each privilege. My mind is drawing a blank. They each have to memorize a scripture, and by all that means that they have done every one for the whole year that they were required to memorize. C means they had to have done at least the last months, and same for A and X. They don't have to do any. How we do scriptures is I take their grade in school and multiply it by 2, and that's how many verses their scripture is. And then they start on Proverbs 1 verse 1, and so if they're in first grade, they memorize the first 2 verses of Proverbs, and then the next month they do the second, verses 3 and 4 of Proverbs 1, and we do that up through 6th grade, so they eventually get to doing 12 verses per month, and I don't go any higher than 12 verses, so 7th and 8th and on will continue to be just 12 verses, but they memorize, they just keep going. So once they've memorized Proverbs 1, wherever that ends up, then they go on to Proverbs 2, and they just continue on. So I'm not sure how long we've been doing it this way, but Thomas is now in Proverbs 8, chapter 8. He's memorizing that right now. So he's done the first 7 chapters, and he could not quote to you all of those other chapters, but it does help them develop the habit of memorization and just kind of know more what's in it, although they listen to it constantly every day on the audio Bible, so they've heard Proverbs many times. But if they're going to memorize something and practice that habit of memorization, I thought that would be a good thing to memorize, so that's why I picked Proverbs, and that's how we do that. They have to do a book report each month if they want to be on E or C, but they don't need to do one if for A or no privilege. And a service project, they have to do one of those each week for C or E, but they don't need one for A. And for a service project, what that is just doing something extra, either for our family or for someone else that needs to be done. So an example might be doing extra work out in the garden, or organizing something that's been needing to be dealt with, like straightening up all the books on the bookshelf, or going out and helping Papa with some yard work or something like that. So a service project is something that's beyond their normal chores and something that they don't get paid for, and I really like it when they come up with the project instead of me giving them one. So I'll tell them, why don't you try to think of one, and then they come and tell me if they've thought of something, because I want to develop the habit of them just noticing things that need to be done and helping out with that stuff. So that's what a service project is. As far as the privileges they get, if they're on E with gaming, that means any free time that they have, they are free to play on the computers or their tablets. For C, they can play after 5 o'clock and anytime on the weekend. On A, they can only play on the weekend, and when they're not on privilege, then they don't get to play anything at all. The tablets, since the tablets are theirs that they bought with their own money, we have a separate line for that. So they get to have their tablets if they're on C or E. If they're on A, they get to have it on Friday night, and then also for no, I guess it is just on Friday night, yeah. And then on no privilege, we still let them have them on Friday night. Bedtime for E kids is 9 o'clock, and for everybody else it's 8 o'clock. And specials, that is like going on our adventure time when we go on our walks, or doing art projects or things like that we're doing. If they're on C or E, they get to. If they're on A, and they have stuff to do, if they've gotten everything done, I'll still let them go when they're on A. But if they're not on privilege, then I don't really necessarily let them go do things special, although I have been changing that a little bit, so I'm flexible. And then the last thing is tickets. So we give the kids a ticket like the kind that you would get at a carnival. I just tear them off and give them, I write their names on the back, and they get 2 tickets for E, 2 for C, 1 for A, and none for no privilege. And those tickets are get out of bed free tickets, so they can get up at nighttime when we're still up, and they have a ticket to get out of bed without getting a demerit, because getting out of bed over and over again is one of the things that they get demerits for. So they get some get out of bed free tickets. Now would be a good time to talk about what they get demerits for. I don't have a list, but generally it's for things like not completing their schoolwork. Like if I find that's what happened this time, is finding maybe pages that have problems that weren't done, or scoring that wasn't done properly, or initials that weren't done. I also, beyond school, just things like fighting or, you know, being disobedient to a degree will get a demerit. If it's bad enough, it goes beyond just getting a demerit. Maybe not coming when I ring the bell would get a demerit. Like I said, getting out of bed when they're supposed to be in bed. If they got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, that's not going to be a demerit. But like when we send them to bed at night and Tom and I are trying to spend time together and they keep coming back over and over again, that's the kind of things that get demerits. So just general things that kids do that they shouldn't be doing, that's the kind of stuff I give them demerits for. And as I said, I try to be merciful so they can get 25 of those in a week and still get some level of privilege. So I am not like an ogre, but I do try to maintain some semblance of control. Now, as far as keeping track of demerits, I had tried several different ways of keeping track that seemed convenient, and if it's not convenient, I'm not going to do it, and it just falls by the wayside. And even still, sometimes I'll find that I'm letting things pass because I'm not near where I mark them, and I'll forget to mark things down. But this has been my best system so far. So this is some of the past ones that I have used this year. So I made this little chart here, and I have one, I make them at the beginning of the year, and there's one for each month, and I printed them double-sided. So I have November's on this side and December's on this side, and it's one sheet of paper, so I only have to get one out every other month, which just makes it more convenient. So there's, each one of the kids has a section with their name on it, and then we have the days listed down the side, and I just mark them down right there so that I can keep track. And then I also write down which privilege they're on. That would be the privilege that they had earned from the week previous. So in this week, these demerits affect this week's privilege. So Thomas had too many demerits this week to be on E, so he was on C that week. I also write down here if they have done a service project that week. I go ahead and initial it so that I can keep track of those. And then down at the bottom, I write down, this one shows some, I write down if they did a book report and if they memorized their scripture, so that I can kind of keep track on one page. Now, sometimes if they have done a book report later, and then I don't necessarily always remember to go back and write it in. So anyways, you might notice too there's different shadings on some of these. I went ahead and I wrote if it was going to be a special day, I make it a different color because I don't know why. I just do that. So this is Asher's birthday, this one right here. So I make that gray, and then we're into Christmas break. So that's why these lighter grays are breaks, and then the darker grays are like holidays. And I'm not really sure why I decided to do that, but that's what I do. So then I print them all out at the beginning of the year, and I keep them in my binder here so that I don't have to think about it. When it's time to get a new one, I just grab one out. So it's April right now, so this page is missing the April, and our March and April's page is missing, and I still have one here for May that hasn't been done, and June is the end of our school year. And we have some odd things at our house. I start my school week on Thursdays, so the school week is like Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so it's kind of strange, but that's how I do it. And so on Wednesdays, they fill out this little form that I made where they write their name, what week of school it is, and how many stars they have. They check the chart themselves, how many demerits, whether or not they've done their scripture and their book report and their service project, and then I write down here which level that they get, and then I mark it down on that chart so that everybody can see and I can remember. Something, this has nothing to do with privileges, but I also have them rate themselves and each other on character things, and we award character of the week. So I went ahead and just put that on the same little application thing so that I didn't have to have something separate for that. I do not do this with my kindergartners, and well, younger than kindergarten. I don't bother at all with the system at all. For kindergarten, I do issue demerits, and so their privilege will be based on demerits only, not on the scriptures and book reports and all that, because they're just not big enough to be messing with that kind of stuff. In first grade, we go ahead and start doing scriptures, and what else is on there? Service projects. So they, in first grade, they have to have their not too many demerits, and they have to do memorize their scripture and do a service project. Then in second grade, I start the whole thing. So they also have to have a book report done, and what else? Oh, the stars, because in second grade is when they really start being more in control of how much work they're doing every day. So that's why I wait until second grade to worry about them getting their stars, because before that I'm helping them and I'm very much controlling how much work they do every day. So it doesn't seem really that important to be keeping track of that stuff. So I think that is everything I can think of to share with you about how I do demerits and privileges. So I hope this helped you guys, and keep watching for more videos on how we homeschool using ACE. See you next time.